Hello, everyone. This is your Friendly Neighborhood Podcast. I'm Kyle Swope, and joining me today is my co-host, Josh Myers, making his triumphant return. Josh, how you doing?
I'm good, Kyle. It's good to be back.
Yes, and we can see his face for the first time, too, if you're watching the video version. So, look at that handsome stud muffin right there.
Oh, man.
Anyways, yes, so we today are going to be discussing Eternals, given the iconic, well, now iconic, I suppose, review. So, before we jump into the review, we have a synopsis that I wrote this time. Eternals follows an age-old superhero team that realizes their whole existence is a lie, and they start killing each other over the course of 3 hours. So, that being said, Josh, if you had to take your thoughts on the movie, okay, and polarize them, either say this is a good movie, this is a bad movie, what did you think? Did you like it or did you not?
I liked it.
Okay. So would you consider it a good movie?
So overall, I did like the film. I thought it was a good film. Yeah, I would call it that a good movie. It was a good movie. I just think a lot of people didn't like it. One, because there was a couple parts that were unnecessary, and also because it didn't fit into the generic Marvel filter. And I'll go into that.
Okay. See, now this is where I'm going to debate. I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons to our Shang-Chi review, but I also did not care for Eternals. I didn't care for Shang-Chi. I didn't care for Eternals, but for completely different reasons. So this is going to be interesting because we'll be playing devil's advocate against each other. But my problem with the movie was, well, actually, let me start by saying what I liked about the movie because that's a shorter list. I liked how it did break the Marvel mold a little bit. And it felt very, I don't know. I mentioned in the Shang-Chi review that I like when they do something new, they bring something new to the table. And Eternals did do that. They just didn't do it very well. The execution was just kind of poor. For one, the movie being 3 hours long about a new superhero team that, you know, the casual viewer has probably never even heard of. I think that's a rough idea in general. So I think that was sort of I don't want to say a face plant because that's a bit too negative sounding, but it was not a good idea, I don't think. I did like some of the characters. Some of the characters, to be specific. I forget the guy's name, but the guy who could mind control people.
Yeah.
Shoot.
I'm going to struggle here with names, too. I definitely don't remember it.
I know. I forget half the characters' names, but the mind control guy, he was probably my favorite character in the movie just because he seemed the most deep, I guess. He had some actual real, ethical struggles, I suppose. Not that the other characters didn't, but his just seemed the most interesting.
Yeah.
Which that's another thing about the movie I guess I would like. They tried to, again, I don't think this played out the greatest, but they tried to make it a very, talking about ethics movie, you know, what ifs, that stuff, which I really like those type of movies in general. I just feel like a lot of Eternals fell flat in that. But yes, I'm trying to think what other things can I say that I liked about the movie. I mean, the action was nice.
Yeah.
The suits were all right. But yeah, it was Kit Harington, the Black Knight, okay? Even though he only had a little bit of screen time, I really liked his character.
Yeah, it was definitely exciting there at the end. They introduced Blade too. It was confirmed that, I forget the guy's name, but that's the guy who plays Blade. It was his voice. He said, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
Definitely.
Yeah,
that was a great end credit scene, I gotta say. Gotta give credit where credit is due. But see, Kit Harington's one of those actors that everyone talks about, and me personally, it's I've never seen him in anything. I don't get what the big deal is, but I have a new respect for him after seeing him in Eternals and seeing him sing "Drops of Jupiter" on Jimmy Fallon. That's another story for another time, but that was pretty funny. But anyways, yeah. So I liked that. I liked that parts. And this is a really controversial opinion, mine. I think I might like Eternals just a little bit better than Shang-Chi. Which, again, I know it's not the topic of discussion, but I'm sort of following up on last week's podcast. But yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, that's just my Those are the good things. Now the bad things, here's where the rubber meets the road right here. But the plot, it's so weird because it was a 3-hour movie, but the plot still felt like it had way too many layers. Like, not everything was fleshed out that great, I think.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned before, they tried to really do a lot of like deep ethical questions, and I just didn't think it really worked. Quite honestly, if you ask me, I think that they tried to do it, but they had too many characters, too much going on that they could not properly flesh out all of the points that they had going on. It felt really convoluted, very jumbled up. Another thing I didn't like is they kept switching between like timelines. There was the story of like the present and what was going on, and then they kept flashing back to like the past, which isn't a bad idea, just the execution was just sort of bad. I almost feel like the execution was the biggest problem of the movie. I think there's a lot of good nuggets in there, but it was just executed very poorly, a lot of it. I mean, that just kind of summarizes up all my nitpicks, quite honestly. I just think the execution was the movie's biggest flaw, I suppose. I also did not appreciate the elephant in the room, the Marvel's first sex scene. That was weird. And it didn't need to happen, okay? Like, they can imply that two characters got it on without doing that.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was no nudity, but it's implied very heavily. Very, very heavily.
Too heavily.
Like, in Iron Man, there's that one scene toward the beginning, but it's like they didn't... You get what happens. You don't need to go into that much detail. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, especially with... I think Marvel knows that the kids are watching.
Exactly. There's a lot of kids watching, and that's another reason why I don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was... Yeah, that was just... It was weird. And yeah, when I think back on it, and I've only seen this movie once as well, because, it's 3 hours, so it's a good bit to get through anyways. And if I didn't care for it a whole lot my first watch through, I don't feel inclined to watch it again. That's just my rule for, like, any movie I watch.
Okay.
Yeah, I think back on it, I think of specific moments, and I'm like, well, that was neat, that was okay. And then I just think of the whole thing in general was just very meh. You have any thoughts? Any disagreements?
Yeah. Let me share my thoughts. I do agree. One with the sex scene, and then on top of that, I also did not like. I did not like that the one guy was gay. Mm-hmm. I think that was also very inappropriate too. Mm-hmm. Makes sense because that character is mentally unstable. But then to have a gay couple as the most like stable image of like a family, like that is not correct at all.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation though, however. Yeah, those were the main two things that I didn't like about the movie, but overall, you said you didn't like how one, it was 3 hours, and two, how to the execution of it, like introducing them. But I actually think like a 3-hour film for introducing a team of heroes that no one has heard about is a great idea. And I would agree with you though that the execution is just a little bit off. Overall, I think they did some great things. And I would actually argue the going back in time thing. I really did like those scenes, and I think it added some great effects to the movie. I remember, it's been a while since I've seen the film now, but my favorite one was where the inventor guy is like, at the site of the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombings, and he's crying. He's like, I shouldn't have created it, and things like that. And I think that was really good. I think that was a very well done scene as well.
Hold on, I'm going to pause you right there. I don't want to interrupt things, but that scene specifically, I almost forgot about that. I really want to talk about it. So see, it's glad you brought that up because I completely forgot about that scene until now. And I have so many problems with that scene, okay? For one, so he's disappointed he made or helped with the creation of an atomic bomb, okay? But you got to realize that the people that, like back in World War II, the Japanese, they were literally like slaughtering people by the thousands, okay? So
Mhm.
even though, yeah, it's bad, no one likes nukes and bombs and stuff, but these people that we were against were doing some seriously like inhumane, like pure, like real evil, like real life evil stuff. They were slaughtering people. So obviously there is some ethics that come involved with atomic bombs and stuff, but the fact that this guy was so upset and crying that these horrible, terrible people all died makes no sense to me at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is definitely a different discussion of ethics.
Well, I just
But
got to
like,
say, though, since we're talking about ethics, again, that's one of the things I liked about the movie. It did bring ethical
Mhm.
questions into consideration. I know we're getting a bit sidetracked on them, but anyways, continue. I don't want to interrupt. I just couldn't help myself.
yeah. I think the one of the main themes of the movie though was like the preservation of life. I think because you had the Celestial, who like his end goal was to birth out of the planet, which would kill like 7 billion people living there. So they're like, no, well, we have to stop this and preserve the world that we've come to know and love. And then you do see that theme, like, well, okay, it comes up the first time when the guy is upset about his invention of the atomic bomb, and then you see that theme come back in his character when he's trying to stop Icarus from allowing this celestial to explode out of the earth. So I think I really like that parallel.
But yeah, see, and I completely understand that, but still, if we're looking specifically at that scene with the Hiroshima, I still have no sympathy for the character, the inventor guy who was crying because, World War II was real history. I mean, it's pretty black and white. Like, there isn't much gray area, I think, in a lot of World War II. Now, again, talking about atomic bombs and nuclear weapons in general, yeah, there's a lot that can be talked about. That's not a black and white issue. But the fact that it was like saving thousands of people from genocide, that's the word I was looking for earlier, genocide. Saving thousands of people from genocide by destroying, like, we only dropped 2 bombs on Japan, right? I could be wrong. I'm not a history buff by any means.
Me neither.
Yeah. Well, we didn't completely obliterate Japan, but I mean, we hurt them. But I mean, we were saving the world, I guess, for lack of a better term, because they were tyrants. Okay. So again, a small price for I don't
Okay,
say
Thanos.
price. That sounds kind of. I know. That's just. I knew I was going to sound really Thanos-like when I said that, and that was not my intention. But
Yeah. On the topic of Thanos, though, the film helped me to appreciate him a lot more.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, this was something I saw on YouTube, a theory, is that Thanos was really like, he was trying to save all these different planets with celestials in the core, because like, if they would have, come out, then all the planets would have been gone. So like, in reality, Thanos was, I guess, trying to save them by controlling, I think it was the life energy thing, or like the population of the planet, so the celestial, couldn't use that power to come to be. So that made me appreciate him a lot more.
But see, with Thanos, though, the thing is, he wasn't trying to do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if he knew about the Celestials and that's why he snapped, then I think that'd be a different conversation. But the fact that he just wanted to, how should I describe it? Thanos was more like keeping all worlds alive by reducing their population to prolong like overpopulation and stuff. He never had anything to do with the Celestials. So like, I don't know. If I thought about it, like, yeah, that makes sense. And they talk about that in Eternals, how, like when half the universe was snapped out of existence, that kept the, what was the, they use a term for it when the Celestial is born. Is it emergence?
The emergence?
Like okay, yeah, the emergence. It delayed the emergence, and then when they all came back at once 5 years later, it brought all that life force and that power back. But yeah, I mean, not trying to rain on your parade or anything, but
of course,
yeah, that's just how I thought through it. I feel like in both of these reviews we've done thus far now, I come across as like the pessimist. Now, don't get me wrong. When we get to some movies coming up, I'm not going to be this way. Trust me. It's just we picked the first 2 reviews to do that are very interesting picks, at least in my opinion. But
For sure.
yeah, looping back to something you said though about again the inventor character, who I thought was a really weird character in general, and his relationship. So here's the thing that bugs me about the things. Now, here's the Friendly Neighborhood podcast. You know, we have views on stuff, but we do not want to discriminate or anything. So I, for one, am also not in favor of, homosexual relationships. Not that they don't happen, but it's just, I don't support it. That's sort of my private life, though. So, if we want to talk about that in private, go right ahead. But the thing with Hollywood in general is they have to shove something in just about every movie for like inclusivity or diversity, and I really don't appreciate that, because when I see a movie, all I care about is the story, okay? Race and like sexuality, okay? I don't really care about either of those as long as the characters are well written and good characters. If those 2 things are what make the characters their characters, then I'm not going to like those characters. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if hypothetically they had a homosexual character, but the character was very well written in everything else, I wouldn't mind it as much. But when you have a character who is being introduced for the first time and they make a big deal about, this guy having a husband, that I do not appreciate. It just feels so forced. But another thing, like, I was watching this really interesting video about Spider-Man No Way Home, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse because I loved that movie, but this is not the review to talk about that. But in No Way Home, they had an incredibly diverse cast, and like they didn't make a big deal about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was
definitely was made a big deal in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And like when they were promoting the movie, they were like, "Oh, this movie's so diverse and stuff." I mean, like, sure, that's fine, but when that's the selling point of the movie, then why should I care? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's like all the reasons for me to care were not there, because they're just like,
it's almost breaking the 4th wall in a sense.
Kind of. And that's the problem with Hollywood in general nowadays. Like, something I would like to do eventually on the podcast is go back and make reviews for stuff that came out a long time ago. I'd love to do that sometime. But, like, those movies, I think, like, the old superhero movies, the good ones anyways, they're good because they're telling a good story, not because of anyone in the cast, regardless of, age, race, gender, any of that stuff. Just because it's telling, good, well-written stories. Where nowadays Hollywood's making this push where it's almost like story comes second to inclusivity, and I don't appreciate that as a guy who's into movies.
I would agree. So I think, kind of moving forward, I think I really liked about the movie is Icarus. He's one of the ones I mostly remember. I really liked how for most of the film he kind of kept it a secret that he knew about the emergence and everything, and how, in a way, I agreed with him in a way. That kind of sounds like Thanos again there, but I did agree with him just for this plot point of like, well, like he'll create, like the Celestial will create so many more worlds. It's matter, and I really liked that. It was almost like this twisted, like, I guess, salvation complex of like Icarus is the bad guy, but like in a way he was also the hero. I did really enjoy that. But then I always think of I know most of our viewers are Christian, and I'm a Christian as well. And I always think of the verse, for there are no one is righteous, not even one. So in the same way, like Icarus tried so hard to please God or the Celestial, but it didn't work because he wasn't righteous, and he ended up, failing, failing God. And I think that leads me into another theme of the movie: is like there was no Messiah, there was no savior in the film. I think I really liked that about it, because there were good guys and bad guys, but there was no savior. There was no savior in the film. It was. I really liked Icarus. He was very well done. Although he is basically Superman.
That's
and the fights on the beach during the emergence, when it's the fast girl, oh my goodness, what's her name? With the swords and stuff, I forget the actress.
Oh, Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie. And then it's the inventor guy. I I instantly, when I was watching that, I thought of Justice League and that one scene where Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Flash are fighting Superman, and I was like, okay, I'm copying DC's homework right now. Like, this looks like it was cool. It was a very well done scene. I think that their speedster was done better than the Flash, because of like they had like the sonic booms and stuff, and I really just like the way that character was portrayed overall as well. But it was a good scene. I really enjoyed it, but they were just copying DC there.
Yeah, which that's something a lot of people pointed out when the movie was first coming out, how much it's like DC in a lot of ways, which I can definitely see that. And it, like, I don't know, but here's the thing: I mentioned it challenging ethics, and that's something that especially Zack Snyder's DC movies, I feel like, did a lot, which I think is part of the reason why there's that little bit of me that, like, that's the diamond in the rough for me. Like, that's what I really like. Yeah, even though I think a lot of the ethics challenging falls on its face when I sit and think about it, it still made me think ethical questions, and I really love doing that. So, I don't know. And that's probably one of the reasons why I would say I like this movie better than Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, although Snyder doesn't really talk about ethics like that are relevant to today, but I think, like, from the films I've seen, which is just seen once, he has created like ethics that relate to the mythology. Like Superman, like, coming to Earth, there's like the question of, oh, like God has come to Earth, I guess. And that was a question that they created, but it's not really a question that I think we would have to discuss today.
Yeah,
I do agree with that. Like, it was in a sense like a Snyder film, but barely.
Right, definitely. But then if we're talking about like those, like, I think Batman vs Superman. Okay, like, I'm not here to talk about if that was a good movie or not. But the thing that it caused me to think about is, if a character like Superman came to Earth, as powerful as they are, okay, do we really want them to be walking around and doing whatever they want without being accountable to anyone? Because for me, that answer is no, okay? And so, like, I actually sympathized with Lex Luthor a little bit in that movie, because I completely understood where he was coming from in his concerns. But yeah, I mean, Eternals asks different questions, but, like, it's still very similar in terms of ethics. The same type of principles, I suppose, apply.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, that's the thing I think I really liked about the movie. The best thing I would say overall is it asked ethical questions. Again, the execution just felt kind of flat for me.
Yeah.
But you bring up Icarus, and I think that's a good point, because Icarus was a very interesting character. Now, I've never read an Eternals comic in my life, so I don't know a whole lot about that, but I do know, based on what I've heard from other people, that Icarus is it the Prime Eternal? Is that what, like, the big leader person is?
I'm not sure.
I think that's I'm just going to call him the Prime Eternal for now. But the Prime Eternal in the comics is Icarus, and he's, like, good guy type, and he is kind of more or less a Superman knockoff. But Icarus is very, like Superman, good guy, not necessarily truth, justice, in the American way, but, like,
Boy Scout.
Yeah, Boy Scout, thank you. Yeah, very Boy Scout-esque, at least to my knowledge. So when they changed the character's role in this movie, it was sort of thrown for a loop. Now, me not having any ties to the character originally, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but I will say we have been getting a lot of, in general, evil Superman stories. And I really don't see how this is any different from any of those.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, don't get me wrong. I love evil Superman stories, though. But this one, as an evil Superman story, didn't really stand out.
Okay.
Because I always think of Injustice and The Boys as like my two favorite evil Superman stories.
Yeah.
But
I feel like Invincible has done that.
Yeah, Invincible. I can't think of much else to say. Do you have any final comments, questions, concerns, Josh, you want to bring up?
Yeah, what did you think of Star Fox?
Oh,
or is that
again,
Harry Styles?
I almost forgot about him. Okay, so Star Fox. So let me if you haven't seen the movie, I'm just going to explain this scene for you in my own words. This is how, after I saw the movie, I came home and I'm like, Mom, you're not going to believe what happened in this movie, okay? And so it's like this, okay? They're all, like, half the Eternals at the end. They go on the ship to try to find more Eternals out there. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these, like, rainbow flashes just start showing up in the hallway, right? Okay? Then this drunk troll kind of stumbles on out, who's voiced by, was it Seth Rogen? I think it was Seth Rogen. Not entirely sure. I think it was Seth Rogen. Anyways, and he's like, I am the Herald here to introduce blah, 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 gives all these things, goes, brother of Thanos, Star Fox. And then Foreigners feels like the first time starts for some reason playing, and then out walks Harry Styles in tights. And
pretty much.
I know. It was...
Although, tights, he was kind of wearing a dress.
Yeah, I know. I'm exaggerating. Yeah. It's... I don't know. See, I have mixed thoughts on Harry Styles in general, but seeing him in the MCU, I think it's just kind of weird. Like, has he even done any acting that I'm aware of?
After watching him in Eternals, probably not.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he only had like 2 or 3 lines anyways, but I'm still kind of scratching my head over the whole thing.
Me too.
It's like Harry Styles. It's like...
Yeah, and I am disappointed. I wanted to see the Star Fox like costume.
Mm-hmm.
With like it's like pink and red and stuff. I was disappointed when he wore like the typical like Eternals garments or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was awkward and out of place, and I think they were just trying to get Harry Styles in there, kind of just to cater to a certain crowd. But they're trying to cater to a lot of different crowds right now, just because Marvel is so big nowadays.
Again, I'm still processing. I mean, that movie came out months ago at this point, and I'm still trying to process the Harry Styles thing. Apparently, though, Star Fox in the comics is a huge womanizer. So, seeing Harry Styles in that role is something that I am both dreading and looking forward to at the same time. Like, I really don't know how else to say it, because it's going to be terrible, but it's going to be so terrible, I want to see it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mm-hmm. So, other than Harry Styles, any other thoughts on Eternals?
I think that's going to close it up for me.
Alrighty. So, Josh, your personal ranking of Eternals on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the greatest movie ever made, Citizen Kane, 1 being the video you took on your mom's camera phone back in 2003. What ranking would you give the movie?
I would give it like a 5.5.
5.5?
Like a 6.
That's like saying you just barely liked it.
Okay, I would give it a 7 now.
Okay. Is
that better?
Probably, because I know me, who did not really like it, I would give it like 5 or 6-ish. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I
think it was good, but it wasn't great. There was a lot of good themes in it. I agree with you. The execution could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that took my score, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So yeah, I'd probably give it a 7 then.
7. Okay. I'm probably going to give it I'm either going to give it a 5 or a 6. I just don't know whether it deserves a 5 or a 6. That's the real question. Okay. But then I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me if I give it a 6 and I only gave Shang-Chi a 5, personally.
Ooh,
yeah. But then again, I don't care what people think. So I'm going to give it a 6. So you give it a 7, I give it a 6. Now here's the hard part. So, what we did previously, this is what our official Friendly Neighborhood podcast ranking is going to be. We'd meet somewhere in the middle, and we're like right beside each other with 6 and 7. So do we give it a 6 or do we give it a 7? Here's my question for you, Josh, okay? Do you think this movie was better than Shang-Chi?
I feel like that's two completely different categories that I can't really judge.
Okay.
I would say no, though. I definitely enjoyed Shang-Chi more.
Okay. That being said, I think it would be fair if we gave it a 6 because we gave Shang-Chi a 7.
Okay.
Alrighty. So, there you have it, everybody.
Word.
The official Friendly Neighborhood podcast review ranking of Eternals is we give it a 6 out of 10 on our thermometer. Yes, 6 out of 10. So, before we head out, Josh, any final smart remarks?
No smart remarks. I just want to say it's good to be back, and sorry I've been gone for so long.
Oh, yes, not a problem. I'm glad you're back as well, Josh. It's been fun. Well, that being said, this has been your Friendly Neighborhood podcast starring Kyle Swope and Josh Myers. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Friendly Neighbor Pod. The Spider-Man theme song was originally composed by Bob Harris and covered by Jacob Swope for this episode. The Friendly Neighborhood podcast is a Lumberjack Media production. Thank you guys all for joining us, and we will catch you next time.